Oh, are we rolling? Whew. Okay, well, hey everyone. Welcome to the Millbrook Fantasy Football Weekly Wrap Up. Glad you're tuning in. I'm Commissioner Michael, and let's get into those Week 7 updates. Alright, so first off, let me just say, midpoint of the season, I'm having a blast. Commissioning this league is one of the most fun things I do on a weekly basis, and I'm glad, we all can share this experience, have fun, and all that other jazz. So glad. Let's keep this up. All right. We had a little bit of the shakeup in the power rankings this week, so let's go ahead and start with that here. And I thought it'll be a little fun this week to give a little bit of a countdown, and we'll start from the bottom up. So you guys will be waiting anxiously to see when your team name gets called. All right, so we'll start number 12. They had an awful week this week, and I don't really think there is an argument for them here because they have just had way too many injuries. Their team just doesn't perform. The Crunching Munchies. They have dropped down back to the bottom, back to dead last, and they're all but knocked out of the playoffs. And I don't see any way they really can make a comeback here. Their upside, they've scored over 100 points once this season. 68 points this week. I don't see any hope for them. Oh, I did come prepared. There we go. Alright, we'll continue on now. Number 11. This one, another obvious one. They've been competing with the Munchies all week or all season rather, for who can score the lowest each week. Grafton's a bum. They're number 11. They're locked in, at the bottom portion of this league. And like everyone says, I don't know what Kelly can do to fix this team. I really don't. Because they can't trade, because you know how that goes. And every time he hits the waiver wire, everybody just gets a laugh out of it. So you're really just going to have your players pull through, and your really only shot is Odell. And by the time this video goes out, probably trade him away. So you're staying at 11. 10. And this team has some potential, but they just haven't shown it as of late. Their manager does not seem inspired, and it's the reigning champions, Big Poppy Huge Time. They have failed to put up big numbers in many weeks in a row now, and their running backs are just looking fishy. And furthermore, Kurt, stop playing the wrong players. Every week, I'm looking, and you're in the front running for the Murphy mix-up. And so, this week you started Breida over Drake, and look what happened, negative 0.5 or 14. And not saying I would have won you the week, but just those are the kind of things that are holding you down on the rankings here. All right, coming in at number 9, this has been an up and down team all season, and they look poised to bring it back up, but the competition ahead of them is just so great, so it's tough to rank them higher due to their low floor, and that's Belichick yourself. They have, redone their whole mentality going to the game. You can talk to their manager, David, about it. He's been an excellent upside and, charismatic and optimistic manager this season. And they're really going to have, their top players continue to perform while their supporting players pick it up. I know they're 5-2, right? 5-2, yeah, they're 5-2, but I'm just worried about their floor with Michelle now out a few weeks. I'm a little worried there, so they're staying low in the rankings for now. Next up, you made me do it. I don't want to have you high on the rankings, but Pasca's daddy, you're making a move up. You're at number 8 now. All right, you're climbing up, and I am starting to realize the keys of your team. And Thielen, number 1 fantasy wide receiver on your team, and I don't see any way that he's stopping up. And your debut player, Devin Funchess, he's looking like a great addition to the Daddies as well. So, congrats there, and we'll see. Maybe you're in the top 6 next week. Who knows? All right, coming in at number 7, we got another team that's been really up and down lately. There's kind of a tough to rank here, so they're just going to go right in the middle, and that is the Feelers. They have tremendous breakout potential each and every week with the Watson and Fuller stack, and that alone makes me want to give them the victory in the projections week in and week out. But it just doesn't seem like they're hitting that ceiling every week. It seems like an up and down thing. Kareem Hunt has been balling out as usual, but Jordan Howard has really fallen off the map here. So they have some running back problems, and their wide receivers are a bit of an issue with all 3 of their big names going through some kind of injuries: Fuller, Ridley, Amari Cooper. And we'll see how that trade there goes, how we'll act with the Dallas offense and Dak Prescott as his new quarterback. So maybe an uptick there in his rankings, but who knows? We'll see. Number 6 now, the top half of our power rankings goes to the Mikey Mikes. They've been one of those teams that just continues to disappoint. And I know their manager, Darren, is saying the same thing to his boys, in this weekend, ready for the next game. But they're really Kamara or bust. They are. I'm sorry, Darren, but they are. I know you had Brown go off last week, but you got killed by Boyd and Keenan Allen just not getting you anything week in and week out. So you're going to stay, right in this middle tier for a while until, your supporting running backs show out, because Crowell, boom or bust. Yeldon, backup running back once Fournette returns, if ever. And with the signing of Carlos Hyde, I'm not sure how the rest of the season is going to go there. So you definitely have some issues you need to work out. Top 5 now. And here is our leader in the table, Scoregasms. Brody had an excellent draft to start. Great job there. And he is, really starting to pull his team together for the playoffs with the Cohen pickup. That, as of right now, is the pickup of the season, regarding, with everyone. 3 weeks in a row of almost or better than 15 points. And on top of that, you have David Johnson, who's kind of getting into a groove there. I know beginning of the season disappointing. I think he's going to pick it up a little bit in the second half here. And with Tevin Coleman, of course, breaking out now as the rest of the season running back 1 for the Falcons, you definitely have a strong core running back group with some very high upside wide receivers in Diggs and Woods. So look for the Scoregasms to be a real playoff and championship contender here as we move forward. Coming in at number 4, and this manager has really dominated throughout the season. The only reason he's not cracking that top 3 is due to all the injuries that the team has been suffering, and that's ravaging rainbows. So they're, I think everybody is hurt on the team, basically. Forced to start 2 backup running backs. This is just a temporary spot for the Rainbows. In 1-2 weeks' time, they'll be right back up there. Another 130-point game is right over the horizon. Number 3 now, and I gotcha. Ian, I'm sure you've been waiting anxiously about where you're going to end up. And here you are at number 3. You've done an excellent job making a few big trades that have pulled your team out from the depths, right where the munchies and the bums are right now. You've pulled the raviolis right up. You found the formioli, and you are using it. I mean, this team, if you take a look at their roster, upside everywhere. Someone is going to break out every week. It doesn't matter. This week Zeke and McCaffrey didn't have too big of a game, but Jeffrey, Cam Newton, and James White now. James White with Michelle hurt, he is an instant running back 1 for as long as Michelle's out, with so much potential and upside in the receiving game. Expect the Raviolis to continue their run up the table. Alright, number 2 now. And, top 2 really could go either way. And this might be a little bit controversial, but Hoochie Mamas are number 2. They're the runners-up in the rankings for this week, week 7. And I know you're thinking, how? But, I mean, let it be known that Hoochie Mamas are a ridiculous team. Every week, there is just giant upside. They're getting, I think, 8 to 10, 11 touchdowns each week, which is incredible, but that's a little bit what worries me here. They have been, each week, dodging some potentially poor performances with touchdowns. Freeman, Nick Chubb, both, saved their games with a touchdown. And then you have Allen Robinson, who is, starting to floor out there. I don't know what's going on with him in Chicago. AJ Green, kind of same thing. We'll see, though. I definitely, they're going to stay up. They're going to continue to be putting up those 115, 120-plus point games. So they're just not up to the exact level, despite the victory over them this week, as Mr. Nice Guy. General Manager Grafton has been astounding this year. His team has no weakness. There's nothing. I'm looking on the team and I'm trying to find some kind of kink in the armor here, but there's nothing. I mean, when you have Gurley, it's almost an instant win every week. I mean, he's putting up 30 points. James Conner, it's looking like Bell might not return for a few more weeks, so that's going to keep Grafton at the top of this leaderboard. T.Y. Hilton back. I could go on and on and on, but we got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and move on to our next segment here. Alright, we're going to dip into the matchup highlights here, and this is something you guys have all been waiting for. I know I've been waiting for it the whole season. Week 7 Wildcat matchup of the week, DTDB Bowl Edition. That's right, we had the Viking Mikes face Pasca's Daddy in a matchup where General Manager Dom emerged victorious over a beaten and battered Darren and his Mikes in a blowout 119-93 scoreline. Wow, the wide receiver core led the way for Pasca's Daddy, led, of course, by Thielen and Evans, who combined for 28 points. Furthermore, I mentioned earlier in the power rankings, the debut of newly acquired Funchess assisted in the victory with 12 points, not to mention Trubisky continuing to dominate for the 3rd straight week, 35 points, which was the 2nd highest in the league for quarterbacks this week. Although the running backs for the Viking Mikes did their best to keep the bedside tussle entertaining, 26 points on their own, but they were tied up and pounded by General Manager Dom and running back Latavius Murray, who made his debut as well for the Mikes with 20 points, creaming Darren everywhere that counts. Both teams now sit at 4-3, as Darren will need to clean himself up after a long weekend under Dom. and move on to Week 8. Alright, moving on to our next matchup. The Crunching Munchies must have thought they had a bye week and that a bye weeks apply to fantasy football because they basically took the week off in an embarrassing 109-68 defeat against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who improved to 4-3. Oh boy, yikes. Cameron Johnson was the only Munchie who showed up. He came to eat this weekend with 179 scrimmage yards, and he was vastly outperformed by the 32-point clinic that Kareem Hunt demonstrated Sunday night for the Steelers. And furthermore, not a single outfield player exceeded 5 points for the Munchies. And I just know that manager Michael has to be furious with this team as they fall to 0-7. Just know. Moving on, general manager Connor can safely chalk up this defeat against David and Belichick yourself to injuries and bye weeks. That's all this was. Alright, he did fall 100-81, but the Ravens and Rainbows, just did not score a single point on their bench, with Gordon, Cook, and Cup all leading the injury report and the rest all on byes. They'll be able to bounce back. Don't worry about this defeat here. Because when you're forced to start Frank Gore and Raheem Mostert as your running backs, along with the Denver defense putting up 33 points against you, there's really not much hope for victory. Belichick yourself extends their winning streak and stands alone in second place at 5-2, while Ravens and Rainbows are still comfortably in the playoff mix at 4-3. All right, and with that, we're gonna take a quick word from our sponsors here. Boeing, the aircraft company. They're incredibly reliable, just like Mr. Nice Guy's fantasy team, and you can always count on them to go on strike right when you have a flight for Christmas. So, my dad will understand that joke. So, Dom, pay attention there. You'll get a kick out of it. All right. Well, moving on. Back to the matchups. It looks like the curse wasn't actually broken last week, and that general manager Brody just needed to gather up some more elixir. There's definitely a Scoregasms joke in there somewhere. Anyways, improving to 6-1 with the 95-75 victory. Brody has to be paying off the refs here. 75 points from a team in Big Papi Huge Time who put up 30 points from the running backs just last week, and this week they put up 4 points. Brody, please, come to Crumbtown, come to the Crunchy Munchies HQ. We'll get a quick meeting in my office, and you'll let me know how do I get the refs to get back on my side there. Regardless, Brody and the Scoregasms seem to have finally solved the running back problem, with Coleman and Cohen putting up 14 each in the victory. While Big Papi Huge Time falls to 2-5 as the reigning champs are officially in the danger zone of missing out on the playoffs. So, not quite panic time there, but definitely keep a watch out of them to make some moves, make some trades, make some waiver wire acquisitions to get back in the race. Ravioli played Grafton's a bum last weekend, which, okay, Kelly, I just don't feel right with Grafton and a bum. Like, I'm not saying your team name anymore. Grafton, not a bum. And what do you think happened in this matchup, guys? James White and Cam made some delicious 52-point fantasy love together against the... Oh, wait. I'm just getting word that Darren has commented it was almost as delicious as Dominic's cream he was forced to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Whichever way you swing, Darren. Anyways, a record 5 players failed to put up more than 2 points for Kelly and the Bums, which leaves me to ask, Kelly, are you just the one who manages the bums, or are you all, some one big collective of bums? You tell me. Ravioli continues its tear up into the upper table, improving to 3-4, while the bums drop to 2-5. Finally, our last matchup, a thriller, an absolute suspenseful, nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat matchup between the 3rd and 4th ranked Mr. Nice Guy and Hoochie Mamas. This is why we play fantasy football, boys, right here. A shootout, 15 players eclipsing double-digit points that came down to the very last of the wires. Last Monday night, late Monday night, first-round draft pick Saquon Barkley, who we all know General Manager August invests so much draft capital into his leader and face of the franchise here, faced an uphill battle for the Hoochie Mamas to come back from a 5-point deficit against Julio Jones and tight end Evan Ingram on Mr. Nice Guy. Down 5 points, Saquon Barkley found what he needed for the breakout run and goal line touchdown to squeak ahead and give August the late last gasp 137-134 victory over Grafton. And with both teams at 4-3, we can only hope as fans that these two teams might meet up again in the playoffs in what will surely be a matchup for the ages. And so that's going to do it for the matchup highlights last week. And we're going to move on to a new segment here. I'm sure you've heard of Deion Primetime Sanders. If you ball, you get the call. Well, here's the Millbrook Fantasy Weekly Wrap-Ups version. You put on a show, and I'll let you know. And this week, we had to give General Manager August of the Hoochie Mamas a call after that brilliant come-from-behind late victory. And so, I have Augie on the phone here. General Manager Augie, what do you think was the key to your victory this last weekend?
At the end of the day, it came down to every single play. That's why I want to give special props to the defense and kicker for really pulling their weight, getting me necessary points, and overall winning the week.
All right, awesome, thank you. And now, if you'd be so kind, I want you to kind of get into the emotions with that late Saquon Barkley touchdown that put you ahead after you had been losing and down that whole last night. What was that experience like, and what was it like on the sideline watching your team pull out the victory?
So there I was, fourth quarter, on the 2-yard line, doing my group project with a bunch of people who were super stressed out.
Classic.
They were low-key very pissed at me for being in the corner watching football on my phone, but I did not care. I watched Saquon Barkley score the touchdown, win me the game. There were a lot of fist pumps involved, a lot of high fives all around. Angry high fives, but high fives nonetheless.
Yeah.
I immediately texted my opposing Grafton friend and let him know that I had won.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, thank you so much for, responding with that awesome insight to what it's like to be on a winning fantasy team. Moving on to the awards and announcements for this week. Murphy mixed up first up, and it goes to the namesake for back-to-back weeks. General Manager Darren, who was actually double dipping this week, also winning the WTF waiver wire, all in one hideous and mind-boggling move. Darren, you dropped Latavius Murray while Cook was still out and injured, instead of the Crowell, who you've been meaning to let go for weeks now. And on top of that, Latavius Murray gets picked up by General Manager Dominic who is playing against you. And would you have it? 20 points from Latavius Murray to lead the way in the victory. The prime reason for the defeat for the Mike and Mikes. And now for the, oh boy, play of the week. This one is, oh, would you look at that. This one's going to Dominic for picking up and playing Latavius Murray, leading the way for victory in the DTDB Bowl matchup, Wildcat matchup of the week. Great heads-up play there by Dominic, capitalizing on Darren's little slip-up and giving him a nice, good old first inch long pounding. Alright, next up is Pasca's Ponder Bowl, and General Manager Michael sent this in, so I'll just read it off for him. Are my crunchy munchies destined to crumble forever? How bad will I look when Grafton gives me a haircut this postseason? Should someone else manage my team, the Munchies, and I'll just be the full-time commissioner? Wow, it really sounds like Michael is going through it, being the manager of a struggling and just rebuilding season Crunchy Munchies franchise. Maybe, whoever he plays next week, let him sneak by with the victory. Alright, moving on. We have big announcement. I'm sure, there's a few managers who have kind of been in the loop as this little new development has been making its progress. But I'm sure everyone is super excited to hear this. The loser playoff, also known officially as the Dansky, named after the worst administrator from our fellow high school, Millbrook. And so we're going to kind of give a rundown of how the Dansky playoff is going to work and how we're going to decide who gets the Dansky Award this season. So we're going to take a quick look at the table here. Can you guys see that well? Awesome. All right, so here's the table. We have the standings, everyone. And so you see we have top 6 here. Our top 6 are going to be making the championship playoff, all right, for the championship Millbrook Wildcat trophy. All right, and then our bottom 6, you see here on the right side, 7 through 12, they are all going to compete in the Dansky bracket, for our ultimate loser for the Dansky. And so how this works, and I know might be a little confusing for some of you guys, but we're gonna, move in right here. So this is how it works. If you are in this side of the bracket, if you are on the bottom 6 teams, you are in the Dansky bracket come end of the season. So however the season shapes up, week 13 finishes, bottom 6, I can't stress enough, bottom 6 are entered into the Dansky bracket. And how to work, it's just the same exact as the regular playoff bracket, but the opposite. So you win, or in order to advance through the bracket, you have to lose your matchup, which means our 11th and 12th place teams come into the season, they are going to have a bye week for the Dansky bracket. And so, Kelly, I know this might seem a little confusing to you, thinking last year you were in 11th place and thought you were in the playoffs. No, Kelly, listen. The Bums are in 11th place and are currently in contention for the Dansky with that first round Dansky bye week, which means that these two teams here, bottom 2, 11th and 12th, only have to lose 2 games. So one game, you lose 1 game, you're into the Dansky Bowl. You're into the Dansky Bowl, and you lose the Dansky Bowl. Whoever loses the Dansky Bowl wins the Dansky. And I'm sure, on top of the haircut punishment, our commissioner is going to have some kind of interesting, fun surprise for whoever ends up as the Dansky this year. So, Glad we got to announce that and get that out of the way. Alright, well, moving on here. We got just a little bit left to go because we're running out of time. We got next week's matchups and a little bit of look into how week 8 might shape up. And so, starting out, we're going to have the Wildcat matchup of the week. Number 1 Scoregasms are taking on number 5 Rams and Rainbows in a game that's going to have huge playoff implications. Hill and Landry should continue to put up points as big as Darren's eyes opened when he realized he was going to lose to Dominic. But with Gordon and Cook still getting healthy, I'm expecting a Scoregasms victory with Cohen continuing to impress. Big Papi huge time. Look for them to bounce back over Belichick yourself, who most likely is without Michelle for a couple of weeks. Look for Drake and Hopkins to take the huge times to an early Thursday night lead and never look back. Pittsburgh Steelers face Pasca's Daddy in an interesting matchup with both teams really needing the victory to keep pace with the upper leaders of the table for the playoff push here. I got the Steelers in this one with Watson and Fuller. That stack, gonna come for the victory here. We got Hoochie Mamas breaking this season's point record against the Viking Mikes. So that's just my prediction here. Look for the Hoochie Mamas to put up insane points and look at their matchups there. They're just gonna cruise to victory. Ravioli will be coming home from Crumbtown with a victory over the Crunchy Munchies, but only after manager Ian shares his formula for a cookie that doesn't crumble. And finally, Mr. Nice Guy does the kind and charitable thing, giving this week's victory over to the Bums. But Kelly gonna drop the W, pick it back up on the waiver wire for $7, and then trade it back to Grafton in exchange for his kicker. Alright, well, that's all we got for the show today on the weekly wrap-up. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. This is, a great week, and we'll look for the second half of the season to be just as amazing. Hope everyone's fantasy football weekend is just as fun as this episode was to make. Alright, I'll catch you all on the flip side.